So today we're going to talk about a production book. We're going to go through a little bit of the technical side of this, but more importantly, the ideology of why you're even using one of these in the first place. For me, the key things of a production book is that it should have information on there. It should be repeatable. It should be something that creates alignment for everyone involved in the project. When we're looking at what it is, it's easy to see the information that's on the document, but understanding its purpose is a different thing. At the top of it, it's putting your client's name at the top and a detailed name of the project, and then a general description underneath it. This is important so the client sees, hey, you know who I am, you know what we're doing, but as well for any of my team involved, they have that information too as well. I want everyone to understand what they're doing. Setting the dates on there so everyone knows when they got to show up. What locations are we going to be using? Is it one, multiple? What's a general description of this? Is this outside? Do we need electric? What are some of those key things that are helpful for your team and your client to understand is critical? That's your header information that's just really general. We come down the left side, we get into the schedule. This can take up a couple of pages if you're on multiple days, but I like to be hypercritical of our schedule. This is where the reverse engineering really comes in, going hour by hour, breaking things down, and typically going scene by scene. Kind of understanding hey, not only is this the time that something's going to happen and the rough estimation of time that's going to take, but also here's some details around what makes that scene possible. This allows us to kind of really gauge the day and to really set the expectation of how long something should take and motivate us when we're beating that schedule, or re-motivate us if we're behind on that schedule. The right side, we're really looking at our crew. I like to list off, our name and our position so everyone has the information of who's available. Getting down into our talent, same thing, first name and the role. And then I like to give client info too, so everyone understands who we're working with and what their role is, so we don't have to ask questions and go through the awkward introductions, but we get more into building relationships together. I always like to include just a light technical side of things, which is really helpful for my camera department and my DIT department. This is helpful because it kind of says, hey, here's the camera package we're using, here's the technical details of frame rates and resolutions, here's some of our white balances, here's our lensing and our different motion. You're not always going to have this information, but if you have it and you're already planning this stuff out, it eliminates a lot of those questions for camera department, so we can kind of start to focus on the bigger project, and especially if you're a smaller, nimble team. Same thing with lighting. I like to at least give information of the rental package we have. So when I'm bringing team on, they understand what they're using. They understand the tools that they have access to, and they feel confident, or they can ask the question beforehand so that we can make sure we have the right things needed. When we get into our next page, we're looking really at shot list and lighting details. I like to put the shot list down just because, it kind of gives us a checklist that we can cross off as we go. It doesn't have to be hyper detailed. You can do this a number of different ways, but I usually like to give myself the frame rates and our different focal lengths, just a general motion that we're going to use for that. And then to the right of that, I like to give our lighting details for each one of those so we know what roles we're living in. Again, this is getting a lot of those ideas out of the way before set so everyone can execute a little bit more, or if we start to see some curveballs coming up, we can navigate those a little bit more gracefully. As well, we give some talent information from attire to makeup. All these pieces of information play a role in just getting the right information out there. The other thing that I like to add is just kind of the overview, the art direction, the scene descriptions. And these are just general information. You don't necessarily need this, but I feel it's really helpful when everyone involved understands the goals and the look of everything that we're trying to do, as well as a general description as what these scenes actually mean to the bigger picture. And then our last page is really a bonus page. If we're doing something a little bit more stylized, we like to have in some of the details of our lighting and some examples, sometimes framing, sometimes lighting looks, sometimes color looks. This is just a good visual reference, and I feel like it eases a lot of stress for client in particular so they understand what we're really trying to achieve. And again, what's great about all this is this transfers over from our treatment package. So a lot of what happens in the treatment package actually automates right over into the production book. Outside of all of that, the bigger picture of all these is to create client alignment. When you put this down on paper, for me, it gets a lot of these thoughts out of my head and into, a document that eases a lot of my stress. So I can start to think more creatively, and I can start to have the conversation with my crew and with my client to make sure everyone's on the same page. Everyone knows when they got to show up, and everyone knows what the creative goals are that we have for the project at hand.